Hey everyone, Eric here. In this video, I'm going to help you understand performance marketing, how to set targets, how to understand your cost per acquisition, and ultimately how we use these strategies to scale startups. Okay, let's get started. So performance marketing. So just so you can understand sort of what this is, performance marketing is marketing based on a cost per purchase target. And so the marketers themselves have performance targets and they need to get a certain amount of conversions from a certain amount of spend. And the reason why this is important is because the previous sort of marketing in the past, meaning like sort of 15 years and before, was this type of marketing, and these people still exist, but these sort of spray and pray marketers, meaning they would spend money, but they couldn't or they didn't track the spend, and they couldn't really figure out what portion of your revenue was coming from which specific marketing dollars. So performance marketers are held to really specific targets. And the reason why we have performance marketers, and sort of basically the background of this type of marketing, is these people were born out of the digital advertising revolution. So Facebook, Google, and all these other platforms. And the thing that was so different when these platforms came out is that they integrated with basically your website if you're selling with them, and most of the websites on the internet, so that when you were spending money, say on Facebook, and if that person clicked the ad and went to your website, Facebook would see that purchase and could attribute it back to that ad or to that campaign. And basically in real time, you can see how effective your marketing is. So you turn the stuff off that's not working, you increase the spend on things that are working, and this enabled startups to grow really, really fast, and for marketers to be very precise, and also venture capitalists to pour money into the startup sector because they could so clearly see exactly who was having success, who was not. So again, the whole point of performance marketing is measuring your customer acquisition cost per conversion. Sometimes we call that CAC, or sometimes CPA, which stands for cost per conversion. And so it's just how much do you spend in marketing to get one person to purchase. So the goal with performance marketing is basically scale as fast as you can while you're still profitable on each new customer. So you don't want to scale at negative margins because that is obviously bad. So there's two components that you need to basically have a really good understanding of in order to scale. The first thing is, what are your CAC targets? So what can you afford to spend to acquire one new customer? And the second thing is, what is your actual CAC? So being able to measure what's your target and then what's your actual performance to understand, are you hitting your targets? Are you doing better? Are you doing worse? Okay, so first off, we need to figure out, how do we measure CAC? So the very typical sort of CAC calculation, and the one thing I want to be really specific about is that the CAC calculation is flexible, depends on your business. You can include or exclude certain types of purchases and include or exclude certain types of costs depending on sort of how your team is structured and what the goal of your business is. It's ultimately a goal for you to use to run your business, but the very typical calculation is advertising dollars, so like paid advertising, divided by new client purchases. So that's basically how much did you spend in ads, and with that advertising spend, how many new clients did you bring to your company? Some people include total client purchases. That also makes sense in some situations. Alternatively, some people include their total marketing costs. So that would include like salaries and some of the other expenses that, outside of advertising dollars. A business that might just use advertising dollars is a business that does most of their user acquisition on like paid marketing platforms. Whereas another business might have a whole team of inbound marketers who are creating like content to bring in organic search. In that situation, maybe it would actually make sense to include your whole team, include certain types of software. So it depends on what your business is doing. Just try to create a metric that really reflects sort of what is the cost to get a conversion. And with most growing businesses, their target is basically new client conversions. So that's what we're focused on. And then here, I just want to dive into this sort of two types of CAC. So if we just move over here, there's sort of two types of CAC. The first is blended CAC and the second is paid CAC. So if you were calculating blended CAC, you might look at, let's say the last month, July or whatever it was, and you said, okay, we spent $76,000 on ads. We brought in 1,650 new clients. So not returning clients, but new clients. So we might say, okay, of all this advertising, and all these new clients, we spent $46 to bring in one new client. But that sort of blends everything together because you actually might have a bunch of clients coming in through non-paid channels, like organic channels, like word of mouth, referrals. Let's say the founder of your business is some kind of influencer. So maybe they're coming through for free through the founder's social channels. So in this situation, it blends together all the marketing. But let's say for that same business, you said, okay, well, if we look at Google and Facebook and Pinterest and Reddit and all this stuff, if you look at the platforms, we spend $76,000 of paid marketing. But when you look in the attribution of these platforms, meaning the platforms themselves tracking the purchases driven from the spend, it's only $560. So they're saying, okay, from the $76,000, that only generated 560 purchases. So that would mean that the difference between $1,650 and $560 is like basically kind of your customers coming in through free channels. So in this situation, you want to really understand, okay, well, if we just break out our paid channels, our CAC is now 136. Is that actually profitable for us to be doing that? If so, that's okay, but you definitely want to make sure that you're not doing any marketing where your CAC is actually losing you money. So you want to break out paid. With a lot of the new updates to the Apple operating system, and there's a lot of things changing in the marketing landscape right now around data privacy. It's getting harder and harder to see paid conversions coming through these platforms. So blended CAC gives you kind of a better metric right now because we're a little bit blind, but it's still good to break everything apart the best that you can. Okay, so now we need to understand, so we sort of have a sense of how to measure your cost per conversion now, your CAC, but what should your targets be? If we look up here, is 46 good? Is that too high or too low? Is 136 good? Too high or too low? So you need to do this math to figure out what is your sort of max CAC, and then sort of what should your targets be. So there's sort of two categories of businesses when you're thinking about targets. The first is a business that gets most of its sales from one-time purchases, meaning customers that buy on average one time and then they don't come back and they buy again. So a lot of e-commerce businesses have dynamics like this. They just sell a product that people only buy one time because of the nature of their product. But then you have businesses that have a lot of recurring purchases. So if you bring in a customer, on average, they're going to come back and buy many more times. And so, obviously any subscription-based business, a lot of marketplaces and things like this, customers will buy over and over and over again. So your CAC target really depends on the repeat purchase behaviors of your customers. So let me sort of break this down for two businesses that have the same price point on their product and the same margins, but one has a lot of basically mostly one-time purchases and the other is mostly recurring purchases. So we're trying to figure out what's called the lifetime value of a customer, meaning what's the lifetime profit you'll make off the relationship with one customer. So let's say both these businesses have a product that per order costs $150, like the average order value. The unit costs associated with that order are $58. And then 150 minus 58 is $92. So you see that the business makes $92 in profit off an order. But for this business, which has mostly one-time orders from their clients, their sort of lifetime profit from a customer is lifetime purchases times profit per order. So it's $92. But for business number two, let's say they went back and they calculated, they looked at all their customers for the past 3 years, and they saw that within the first 12 months or say 18 months of being a client with the company, they purchased on average 3.8 times. So 3.8 times the profit per order is $350. So this basically means that with this business, they can spend up to sort of maximum $92 in marketing on a customer and still basically break even on their relationship with the customer. So the target at the very top end of the target for the sort of target CAC should be $92, but if they want to turn a profit, maybe it's something less, maybe it's $50. But with the second business, even though the product has the same price and same margins, because they're getting a bunch of purchases from a customer after they make that first conversion, the lifetime value, sort of the total lifetime profit of a customer, is $350. So they could easily spend up to $350 And at $350 cost per conversion, that's where they break even on their relationship with the customer. So they could say spend $250, in terms of on marketing to get one new client to buy, and they would still make a profit. So these two businesses would have extremely different CAC targets. And so you need to make sure that you try to understand your customer lifetime value before setting your CAC to understand if you're overspending or underspending. Oh, and by the way, if you're finding this content valuable, please like this video and subscribe to my channel right now so that you don't miss any of my new videos. Okay, so now I'm gonna kind of dive in a little deeper, because just sort of thinking about all the ad spend bucketed together in one sort of, dumping it together and then looking at all the total new clients, it's really not that simple. So I wanna dive a little bit deeper into each channel to give you a sense of sort of how you should be thinking about your CAC when it comes to different marketing activities. So there's generally sort of two main buckets of marketing. The first is called prospecting, and the second is called remarketing. And sort of this is the same on all channels. And prospecting is basically selling to brand new customers that have never heard of you. Sometimes they call these like cold audiences. And so getting one of these customers who has no idea who you are to basically click your ad or interact with your brand and then buy, it's more expensive. That's where your highest CPAs are going to be. And that's also where almost all of your marketing is going to be focused, at least if you're growing. And then there's remarketing, which is marketing to customers that already know you. Maybe they've interacted with you on social, been to your website. Maybe they've actually purchased before and you're launching a new product and you're trying to get them to repurchase. The CPAs with this audience are going to be really low because they are basically already like leads. And they already came through your prospecting channels probably, and that's how you got them to your website, or that's how you got them to interact with you, or maybe they're a previous customer. So the audience is going to be really small. The CPAs are going to be low, but you won't be able to scale this audience because first they need to come through the prospecting channels. So just understand, I'm going to break down what are prospecting audiences on Facebook and Google, so that if you're going through your accounts, you can really understand what your CPA expectations should be and how you might be able to scale these different audiences. So in terms of Facebook, the main prospecting campaigns are lookalike audiences. So that's where you give Facebook basically a group of people. It could be your website visitors, it could be your customers, it could be an email list. And you say, Facebook, I need you to create an audience that looks like this group. And this is one of the really powerful tools Facebook has. It's just called a lookalike audience. Facebook will look at that audience, figure out their behaviors, their demographics, etc., and they'll create a similar group of people that's a different group of people that you can market to that should have similar interest in your brand and similar propensity to purchase, etc. So lookalike audiences are for prospecting. Interest-based audiences, so that could be like a certain behavior, like working out or whatever, or an interest in a certain brand or a show or something like that. And also broad open audiences where you just tell Facebook, hey, I'm going to give you no specific information, just look for conversions. These are prospecting audiences. Remarketing audiences generally are you're targeting people who've been to your website, web visitors, people who purchased in the past, like past purchasers, or people who've engaged with your Instagram or Facebook posts. These are remarketing audiences. So when you're going through your account performance, your highest CPAs are going to be prospecting, and that's also where almost all your spend should be going. And you'll see a little bit of spend going to your remarketing with low CPAs, but just know that that's sort of what your expectation should be. And cost per conversion is focused on prospecting because that's how you grow your company. So this is really where all the focus of sort of understanding your performance marketing is focused on prospecting. And then the second thing I want to talk about is Google AdWords. What are your typical prospecting campaigns on Google AdWords? First is Google Shopping campaigns. Can be a little bit remarketing, but when you scale these up, it's like where your ads get sort of dynamically created and sort of served to these audiences by Google. They're prospecting campaigns. So generally, these people have not seen your brand before. So be focused on the CPAs of your Google Shopping campaigns. Non-branded keyword search campaigns. So these are basically search campaigns where you're targeting keywords that aren't the name of your company. So this could be like product keywords. Let's say I have a athletic sweatshirt company. These would be like white sweatshirts, sweatshirts for men, athleisure sweatshirts, but nothing that says the name of my company, which is Eric Sweatshirt. So non-branded keyword search campaigns, a lot of stuff on YouTube. Google has a lot of different kind of campaigns. I'm just trying to cover some of the main ones. And then the remarketing, the most typical remarketing campaigns on Google are brand keyword search campaigns. So where you're literally bidding on people searching for your own brand. So if my company is called Eric Sweatshirts, I'm going to be buying search traffic, searching for Eric Sweatshirts. You generally don't want to be spending very much money here because these people are already trying to get to your website. So you might see a CPA of like $1 and say, wow, that's so great. But it's actually not that great because they're probably going to come to your website anyway. You do want to spend a little bit because competitive brands can actually bid on your brand name and try to steal your traffic. So you want to outbid them, but you don't want to spend much here. And then Google has a lot of retargeting audiences where you can retarget a lot of different people, sometimes even people who've just clicked on your ads before, etc. So those are just so you have a sense of like, you'll see very different CPAs, but you need to be really specific on like, is this a prospecting campaign? Are these new clients? Or are these basically people who are already interested or know about my company? And I just want to give you some more tools in your toolkit for understanding and diagnosing changes in your sort of performance marketing or your growth marketing metrics. There's really, again, and this applies to all channels, there's really sort of three key metrics that you can diagnose increases, decreases in performance. And these are CPM, CTR, and CVR. And these all feed into your cost per acquisition. So if your cost per acquisition goes up, you need to study these metrics and you'll see a change in one of these, if not all three of them. So the first thing is called CPM, which stands for cost per mil. And that's the average cost you're paying to show your ad 1,000 times. So that's called ad impressions. And that just represents the cost of advertising. So some rough ranges for prospecting, remarketing, I'm not even going to cover that because these numbers can be quite different, but that you see like on Facebook and Google can be like $3 to $25. Again, it can be outside of this, but these are just some, in my experience, kind of the numbers I sort of see. Click-through rate is the percent of people that are shown your ad and then click on the ad, like click the Shop Now button. So the click-through rate, you generally see sort of like 0.5% to 2% roughly. And again, those are for prospecting campaigns. And so the last one is conversion rate. So the percentage of the people that click the ad and bought it. Again, you'll sort of see 1.5 to 2.5%. That's pretty decent. If it's lower than that, you probably have a problem unless your price point is like really, really high. And if it's higher than that, then that's great. But if your CPA, for instance, spikes, take each of these metrics, look at the period where the CPA went up, and then look at a previous period where it was lower and compare the CPM, compare the click-through rate, and compare the conversion rate. And one of these is going to have, basically the CPM, the cost of advertising will have gone up. The click-through rate, meaning the number of clicks that you're getting from basically a certain amount of spend, maybe will have gone down. And that will feed into your cost per click. Because if you're spending $20 to show your ad 1,000 times and your click-through rate is 1.5%, but then it drops to 0.5%, you're going to be getting 2/3 fewer clicks for the same advertising spend. And if your conversion rate drops, then you've got some kind of problem. And so all these things can be diagnosed. If your click-through rate drops, maybe you changed your audience, maybe you need new creative, et cetera, et cetera. So you can start kind of getting in there and trying to figure out what's going on. So always focus on these three metrics and you will be able to figure out what is going on when you have changes in performance. Again, the one thing I wanted to just remind everyone is prospecting feeds remarketing. People aren't going to be searching for your brand unless you've already prospected them. So, brand keyword search campaigns come from prospecting campaigns. Web visit audiences come from lookalike and open audiences. So you can't scale remarketing audiences. Most of your spend needs to be prospecting. So just understand that growth marketing is focused on prospecting and this cost per conversion for prospecting. And so at the end of the day, when we're talking about performance marketing, your spend is going to drive a certain number of conversions. You want to get the most conversions that you can out of your spend. You have to hold your marketers accountable. They should be hired and fired based on their performance. And the average spend per conversion is your customer acquisition cost. So I hope you have a really good understanding now of performance-based marketing and how we think about scaling startups. By the way, in the description below, you can download this Excel file for free and use it for yourself. Also, I've linked down below to some of my other financial modeling and e-com videos. Check those out. And if you found this content valuable, please subscribe and click the little bell icon so that you don't miss any of my new videos. Like this video, leave me a comment or a question below. Also, check out my online programs if you want to do more startups training with me. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.